On today's episode, how to make quality and kill it with greed. Not Age 3 though, that one's pretty good. Do you love doing a colonialism instead this time? I mean, sometimes. Age of Empires shot up like a rocket and immediately burst into flames following stardom. I may have given mythology the old nostalgic handy, but if we're being serious, that game's servers died. And it didn't sell well like the second. And Microsoft dug their claws into the developer and bled him dry. The development history of these games is weird and complicated, but we're gonna trim the fat and cut to how the franchise collapsed. This is part 2 of my look back at the Age of Empires franchise. Where's my swords? Give me back the swords! I want weapons! Age of Empires 3 struck boldly into new territory, leaving ancient history in the dust and tackling the most interesting historical source material, the Pioneers! Okay, I'm not a fan of the setting, that's a given, but where else were they gonna go? Besides, now we got guns. Now we've got indigenous people to offer generationally impoverishing deals to. Plantations. No, it's good, just scrub over the smallpox and slavery bits, it'll be great. Look at the pretty graphics. Look at the water effects. Look at the physics engine and satisfying destruction animations. Hell yeah. Honestly, this game looks great in 2019. Real shame it was so hard to run for most computers at the time. No, really, it was a big problem. Even the story and pseudo-historical material they co-opted for the single-player mode is improved, if you ask me, over older games. I get some people really dig being an emperor of a real-life kingdom, and even if the story is contrived and silly in this game, at least it's playing at a speculative take on history instead of regurgitating a textbook. I'm here for that. That's alright by me. No real need to mention the editor. This game's basically an improved Age of Mythology, so it's familiar to play in that regard. Well, okay, not at all, but I'm not sure how to say this without farming dislikes, and I know this game has its dedicated audience, and I do like a lot about it, but this game was a serious stumbling point for the franchise. This game is, appropriately, a tactical expansion for the franchise, but perhaps a bridge too far past what Age of Mythology was already trying to do. Say it's your first time loading up the game, and you're expecting familiar game mechanics. Boy, do I have a surprise for you. Your scout's been replaced with a hero unit, or explorer. He's a tough guy that can take on more than one unit by himself, be resurrected, and uses powerful cooldown abilities. Oh, it's a Warcraft 3 hero! That's weird. Your explorer can hunt down treasure on the map like a super scout from past games, acquiring resources or bonus units and things. And you even gain experience while doing it. Oh, this really is Warcraft 3, huh? Lastly, he's the one building your town centers to thematically align with being an envoy of a greater civilization, building up a trashy little outpost instead of a great kingdom. So that's neat. I'll get to experience in a minute, but I've only covered the basics. This game changed so much, added so much. It's hard to keep up with. This game is a compromise between Age of Empires 2 and Mythology, where civilizations have enormous differences and completely unique units, but also share a lot of common options as a baseline. Presumably it's intended to help balance the game. Problematically, the game's balance isn't great, if those tier lists mean anything. You can pin this on the expansions. They added Asian dynasties and indigenous civilizations, and the latter are overrepresented massively to my understanding. But hey, we're casuals here. The game has its competitive base, leave them alone. The expansion races were exactly like Age of Mythology in fundamentally changing how the game is played, but it's boring and long to explain. Just look at the dancing men. You can ally yourself with native populations on the map for minor rewards, which is just weird for these games, but makes total sense. It's another thing to keep track of, though. You can hire mercenaries. You have to build and fight to control trading outposts on the map, kind of like how Age of Mythology centralized gameplay with settlement points. If you're lost, I mean, I know I was. Playing this game the first time feels alien. Playing it 10 times feels alien. I miss Grunk. Okay, no, I don't. Like, I get why things changed. The setting was an opportunity to test new gameplay features and elements, but they're so bizarre to actually interface with as a longtime fan. Add to this a million little issues that don't come up for the casual, but are seriously problematic for the fundamental gameplay. Especially at a high level, like, I don't know, bad wall placing mechanics, unclear upgraded units that just looked like themselves, unlike older games where you could tell who was upgraded in a second. Multiplicative bonuses some units get against others, which are totally ephemeral and unintuitive, and nothing like the old games and their flat bonuses when two units of different kinds fought. Just so many little annoyances, it's hardly a surprise that the game from '99 is kicking while this one's got, what, a fifth of its size by comparison? I guess the real kicker, the thing that really separated this game from the previous entries, was the home city progression system. Progression. Ugh. Here's my home city. Here's my cards. How do I even explain this? Your home city starts at level 1 and you only have so many cards to use in a match. When you collect experience in a match, which you get by building stuff, killing stuff, exploring, whatever, you'll unlock shipments that get sent to your town center like extra food, some units, the like. Fun and strategic bonuses for doing things in the game. And as you gain XP by playing matches, the total XP gained would contribute to your total home city level and you'd unlock new cards to use in other games. So the game wanted you to grind a ton of matches and unlock all the cards and develop your personal strategy. That's a ton of commitment for a game that tons of computers in 2005 ran at 10 FPS. Never mind how the entire card system and shipment stuff completely and irreparably warped how the game was played. Never mind that this was probably the least franchise fan-friendly addition to gameplay that needlessly convoluted what Age of Mythology was already doing well. On release, you needed to grind every single civilization up to max to be competitive with players on the ladder. Yeah, some good stuff's hidden up there at the higher levels, and you had to grind it out one civ at a time. A grind in an Age game. Jesus Christ. They fixed this eventually, but the fact that it was even considered acceptable and in a competitive game is laughable. Actually laughable. You wouldn't make chess players grind 100 games to unlock rooks. Okay, you don't make players grind stuff out to receive optimal shipments from their home city. You know, I'm not nearly as mad as I should be. Let's keep going. Oh hey, this is fun. Have you ever owned or controlled a studio that owns a powerful IP and thought, what if garbage? The Nintendo DS got two Age of Empires games. Okay, games. Jeez, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Age of Kings, not the good one, and Mythologies, here are spin-offs, but they occupy a really unfortunate bump in the timeline for Age of Empires. While Ensemble, or what was left of it, was developing the next big game for Microsoft, a couple of other studios got tasked to make these games. The real question is, to quote the angry video game nerd, what were you thinking? The games play unlike anything in the franchise. They were given pretty fair shakes by the media at large, but they're so inherently unessential to the SRP genre, it's embarrassing to have the franchise's name up there at all. Everything's sort of familiar. I mean, the units have familiar names, you play in familiar settings, you're doing all the same things, I guess, but it's not the same. It's not twitchy and stressful, it's slow and obnoxious. I want to stress that this game is technically sound, but it's got such limited vision for a game with a name, I don't know why anyone would play it. And yeah, it has its audience. These games seem to have all kinds of fans, and I'm guessing these are the games those fans grew up on. It's not like the games lack strategic depth or lack features, they're fine, I want to stress that, but the gross-ass sound effects, the ugly models and designs, the infantilization of the franchise, it's just gross. Age of Empires is a real-time strategy game, and both of these are turn-based strategy games based on the concepts laid out by their progenitors. I'm sure there's a way to make an interesting turn-based Age game, but what were they trying to do? It's possible that these were, again, strategic pushes into other markets for the franchise, but I mean, look at the DS library. Forget that there's actually a decent number of competent RTS games on the console, like Revenant Wings and the Secret of Mana spin-off. Now we're gonna take on the tactical RPGs too, because Age of Empires was definitely set to sweep the likes of Advance Wars, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance 2, and Disgaea off the market. Never mind even that, how about making a vaguely historical looking game when your very real competition looks like saturated anime swords? You might be fishing in the wrong pond. It's just bad strategy, and I don't want to spend time on these because they're boring. Let's move on. Hop on board the dumbass train, take a ride in our corporate ghoul engine, and order from our blatant customer exploitation menu. The fun's only just begun! I want to say, is this the best you could do, Microsoft? But it's not. Of course it's not. Props for setting the bar so low for the games industry and how it handles veteran titles that you actually set the base for what EA did to BioWare. Age of Empires Online had a rocky start, a brief groundswell after fixing some stuff, and then it f***ing died. And it deserved death because it was rotten to the core at the outset. Let's put this in perspective. The game was conceptualized as an MMORTS. For what it's worth, maybe they could have made it work. But they didn't. They took the franchise in a new artistic direction, presumably trying to keep the game looking fresh and clean for years, and clearly taking notes from Disney or Pixar, whatever. For the first time, the game was made to be comedic, made way more kid-friendly and cartoony. I'm not a fan of the aesthetic shift, mostly because it looks like the most watered-down, puerile, mass appeal tripe I've ever seen, but at least the animations look great. The game looks great. I can't deny it. Now, the game was made free to play, which absolutely and irreconcilably translated to fee to pay. To quote some other guy, the game was designed to take your money. How? There was no earnable premium currency, first of all. Everyone today knows for a free-to-play game to be successful, it's gonna need something for players to work towards, so they can reasonably earn the rewards they want for free, but can pay to make the time pass significantly quicker. Age of Empires Online wouldn't let you do anything without a wallet except be a free-to-player with far less actually available to them than the payers. In other words, online was effectively pay to win. A competitive RTS was pay to win.
This is stupid. And moreover, this is dumb.
The game launched with 2 civilizations only, and though one was added quickly with more on the horizon, you needed to pay like $20 for civs. That's crazy! Even worse, the game has equipped items that passively power up your units, and while you could loot them from treasure camps, kinda like the third game, it's ridiculous to throw a grind in front of a player to get what a unit's stats should be. It cost money to upgrade your unit's base stats to be competitively viable. The game had barely any content on release, and the company couldn't keep up with player demand. For a launch, all things considered, shameful. Things improved with a later patch once the review scores were in, very typical, and they realized, hey, we need a way for competitive ladder play to actually be balanced. So they did that. And they added a skirmish mode, you know, the mode that everyone actually plays in Age of Empires, where all my footage has come from largely, and apparently hadn't thought to launch with that. And also you had to buy it. Oh my fucking god! Bringing the game to Steam helped. They added a bunch of single-player content, and yet this was released in 2011 and was still an online-only game, which, reminder to anyone who doesn't remember Diablo 3, was still hugely controversial because, hey, we still need proper fiber technology worldwide in 2019. Now, 10 months after launch, they finally added, can you guess? A premium currency! There it is! There it f***ing is! How's the player base looking? Oh god damn it! Yeah, money was better, but the game couldn't recoup its losses financially or financially. If you catch my drift, the original developers ducked out way earlier, literally partway through development, and it's pretty clear why they'd want to. How could you make something that's at least been charming and innovative and fun for years, and then drag your game's name through a field of shit in front of the internet? It's depressing. But Age of Empires Online surely isn't bad to play, you know? As an RTS, it's got everything it needs. As an age game, it fits just fine. The mechanics are simplified slightly. It resembles the older games quite a bit with certain strategic simplifications, but overall it's solid. And I wasn't joking about the aesthetics. Yes, it's cartoony, but watching your gaggle of log-tossing freaks obliterate an entire enemy civilization, right, with the strength of their wood, is awe-inspiring. This game can genuinely be hilarious and interesting and fun all around. And some people saw that, because when the game died, and the only reason I'm able to record this at all, a group of people, codenamed Project Celeste, basically pulled the game out of its grave and animated the corpse fully featured and fully playable. I don't know enough about the competitive scene, but as far as I can tell, nothing is really wrong with the game. It seems like this kind of behavior towards beloved franchises only ramps up in frequency and depravity as the years go by. And boy howdy, I'll be there to cover the falls when I get the chance, because Age of Empires is worth remembering. KBash out.